What if there was a way to end religious conflict? Not through arguments or new doctrines, but through direct personal experience. What if one person could show that maybe, just maybe, every faith, every path, and every scripture was pointing to the very same truth? This isn't a theoretical question. It's the story of a man who embarked on one of the most radical spiritual quests in history. In 19th century India, a devout Hindu priest and devotee of the goddess Kali decided to do the unthinkable. He would try to live as a true Muslim and then a true Christian. He lived each religion from the inside, asking, are the gods of different faiths truly different? Or are they all just different masks worn by a single universal consciousness? What he discovered would not only change his life, but would also ignite a spiritual fire that continues to burn across the world today. Our story begins not with a perfected saint, but with a young man named Gadadhar Chattopadhyay, born in the humble village of Kamarpukur, Bengal. From a young age, Gadadhar was different. While other kids played, he was often lost in spiritual moods, moved to tears by a song or the sheer beauty of nature. This deeply sensitive soul was eventually led to the famous Dakshineswar Kali Temple near Calcutta, where he was appointed as the temple priest. Now known as Ramakrishna, he found himself in charge of the daily worship of the goddess Kali. But for him, this wasn't just a job. The rituals felt empty. He would look at the stone image of the Divine Mother and was consumed by one agonizing question. Are you real? Are you just stone? Or are you alive? This question became a fire in his heart. His longing wasn't a gentle wish. It was an unbearable pain, a desperate, all-consuming need to see God face to face. He would spend hours weeping before the statue, begging for a single glimpse of the living reality he felt was hiding just behind the veil of the world. Days turned into weeks, and Ramakrishna's desperation grew into a kind of spiritual madness that alarmed everyone. He could barely eat or sleep. His heart, he later said, was being squeezed like a wet towel. He felt he was a failure. If he couldn't see the mother in this life, then life wasn't worth living. One evening, pushed to the edge of despair, he reached a breaking point. Inside the temple's inner sanctum, his eyes fell on the ceremonial sword used for worship. In that overwhelming moment, he felt he could not continue without a sign from the Divine Mother. He took the sword in his hands, his mind consumed by one final plea for her presence. But in that last moment, something extraordinary happened. The temple, the statue, the sword in his hand, everything vanished. In its place, he saw a limitless, infinite, effulgent ocean of consciousness. Waves of brilliant light rushed toward him, engulfing him, swallowing his very sense of self. He collapsed, losing all awareness of the outside world, but inside, he was flooded with a steady flow of pure, undiluted bliss. He had his answer. The mother wasn't just real, she was the only reality. This vision wasn't an end, but a radical new beginning. It had confirmed for him the reality of his own path. But now, a new question began to take shape, one born from a boundless compassion. He saw people of different faiths, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, arguing, each convinced their path was the only true one. How could that be? If God was an infinite ocean of bliss, could there really be only one stream leading to it? This was the start of his great experiment. He decided he would become a practitioner of other major faiths, to live them so fully and sincerely that he could reach their promised goal. It was a spiritual hypothesis, and he was about to become the sole test subject in a profound spiritual experiment. Ramakrishna decided to start with Islam. He understood this required total immersion, not just academic study. He put aside his life as a Hindu priest, even stopping his visits to the Kali Temple, the very center of his world. A Muslim guru, Govinda Roy, initiated him into the Sufi path. Ramakrishna began to dress, eat, and live like a devout Muslim. He set aside his Hindu prayers and diligently recited the namaz. His mind, once filled with Hindu deities, now focused only on Allah. This wasn't a performance. For the duration of this practice, he was living the life of a Muslim. This was a scandalous act in 19th century India's rigid society, but Ramakrishna was driven by a thirst for truth that went beyond social rules. After a short period of intense practice, his sincerity was answered. He had a vision of a radiant, bearded figure, whom he understood to be a prophet, who then merged into his own being. Just as with his vision of Kali, this experience culminated in the realization of the same formless divine. He had walked the path of the prophet and arrived at the very same peak. This radical immersion was just the beginning. Before we explore how he embraced the path of Christ, if you're finding this journey into spiritual mystery compelling, take a moment to subscribe and join our quest for wisdom. In 1874, his spiritual curiosity turned to Christianity. He began to listen intently to readings from the Bible, fascinated by the life and teachings of Jesus. One day, visiting a devotee's garden house, his eyes fell on a painting of the Madonna and Child. As he stared, he felt the figures in the painting become animated and saw rays of light emanate from them and enter his heart. His mind was flooded with Christian thoughts, and for 3 days he did not set foot in the Kali Temple. On the 4th day, he saw a vision of a luminous figure with large, beautiful eyes approaching him. An inner voice told him, "Behold the Christ, who shed his heart's blood for the redemption of the world." This figure of Jesus, whom he called the Master Yogi, then embraced him and merged into his body. Ramakrishna fell into samadhi, a state of divine ecstasy. Through this profound experience, he was convinced that Jesus was a divine incarnation, and Christianity was another valid path to the same God consciousness. Ramakrishna's journey had so far been one of intense devotion, or bhakti, to God with form. But what about the path of pure knowledge, or jnana, which seeks union with a formless, absolute reality? This final piece of the puzzle arrived with a wandering monk named Totapuri. Totapuri was a master of Advaita Vedanta, a non-dualistic school of Hindu philosophy. He saw Ramakrishna's ecstatic devotion to Kali as a potential obstacle to the highest truth, which is beyond all names and forms. He offered to guide Ramakrishna to this ultimate realization. Under Totapuri's instruction, Ramakrishna sat for meditation and, with a final act of mental will, cut through his attachment to the form of his beloved Mother Kali. In that moment, his mind soared beyond all thought into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the highest state of formless union with the Absolute. It was a state that had taken Totapuri 40 years of practice to achieve. Ramakrishna attained it in a single day. He would continue to enter this state over the next several months, astounding Totapuri. He had now scaled the mountain from both sides, the path of devotion to a personal God, and the path of knowledge of an impersonal Absolute. Having sincerely practiced these great religions from the inside, Ramakrishna's grand experiment was complete. He had followed the devotional paths of Hinduism, the mystical path of Islam, and the loving path of Christianity. He had scaled the philosophical peak of Advaita Vedanta, and from the summit of each of these mountains, the view was exactly the same. His conclusion was as simple as it was profound. In his own Bengali words, he declared, "Jato Mat, Tato Path." As many faiths, so many paths. All religions, he taught, were just different paths, leading to the same God. He used a simple analogy. A lake has many landing stairs, or ghats. At one, Hindus take water in pitchers and call it jal. At another, Muslims take water in leather bags and call it pani. At a third, Christians call it water. But the substance is one and the same. He realized the goal wasn't to convert people, but to encourage each soul to follow their own path with sincerity, because all sincere cries for God reach the same destination. This conclusion was too powerful to remain the private experience of one man. Ramakrishna saw that his experiences were not for him alone, but for the benefit of all humanity. He began to gather a group of earnest young disciples, training them not in dogma, but in the fire of direct experience. Among them was a brilliant, rational young man named Narendranath Datta. Though skeptical at first, Narendra was ultimately won over by Ramakrishna's profound love and undeniable spiritual power. Ramakrishna saw in him the person who could carry his message to the world. After Ramakrishna's passing in 1886, Narendranath would become the world-renowned Swami Vivekananda. It was Vivekananda who took the essence of Ramakrishna's life and presented it on the world stage. At the 1893 Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago, his opening words, "Sisters and Brothers of America," earned him a standing ovation and captivated the audience. He introduced them to the Vedantic idea of a universal harmony that accepts all faiths as true. The radical experiment of the humble priest from Dakshineswar had, through Vivekananda, sparked a global conversation about interfaith harmony that continues to this day. The life of Sri Ramakrishna stands as a breathtaking testament. In a world often torn apart by religious strife, he offered not a new argument, but a lived solution. He didn't just preach harmony, he embodied it. He showed that every religion could be a valid doorway into the same single chamber of divine presence. His life suggests that the deepest truths aren't found in arguing over maps, but in actually making the journey. The question his life leaves us with isn't which religion is right, but how deeply are we willing to climb our own path? What do you think of this radical experiment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And for more journeys into the world's greatest spiritual mysteries, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Thank you for watching.